Well, hey there, Heather. Thank you so much for joining me today for the Confident Sober Women podcast. I'm so glad to have you here. And I'm going to turn the mic over to you, let you share a little bit more about your story, and then we're going to chat.
Excellent. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And
Mhm.
as another woman in recovery, you know how important it is to share the message. So other people know that there's hope in recovery. It can be done and the strength behind it. Just so everyone knows, my recovery date is April 30th, 2014. So I'll be going on 12 years at the end of this month, coming up very shortly. And how I arrived there, grew up, I mean, most of us have families that are, it's genetic. So being raised by addicts, my parents were teenagers when they had me and shortly divorced afterward. I grew up in, my dad got remarried and I ended up in a very Cinderella-like environment. And growing up, I didn't realize that my dad struggled with alcoholism my whole life. It was just not super present in the household. So it got swept under the rug. When he was in recovery, I'd see coins, but I thought it was a punishment. I didn't really understand what was going on. And I was a teenager. So this is how well they kind of hid the issue. He'd come home sick. I thought he was just sick, not that he was drunk. So that was an interesting perspective. And I ended up focusing on getting out of school because of the household environment I had. That was my ticket, was to end up in college. And my first, I would say, bout at addiction, because I wasn't exposed to drugs and alcohol. I was a super nerd in, I mean, Silicon Valley, where I'm in nerd central. So I really focused on grades, but I got really depressed one summer and food became my first form of addiction because I had no access to nothing else. So I didn't realize that that was going to be my first drug of choice and became very unhealthy, really just escaping through food, going from very athletic to being very overweight and depression setting in through all of high school. Fast forward, I moved from California to New York. I ended up on my own at 17 years old, no driver's license, no car, in a state where I basically know no one. My stepmother grew up there. And so we moved. And college, it's, the college situation. You go out, you party. It's the first time I had a drink. All the behavior seemed normal to my peers. And again, didn't realize that I had any kind of sort of addiction that needed to be addressed. And then I met my husband and we started dating when I was 19. Thank God we're still together. Like we've been married 23 years, together almost 30. And he's been through it from the beginning to my recovery. And again, we were in party mode. Most of it was, similar to everyone else. It was just when life started, career started, and the craziness kept continuing when we're supposed to be full-fledged adults in a responsible environment. And I got to the point where we put it down. I put it down to have my daughter. I was 4 years sober, dry drunk and postpartum depression. That is, I don't recommend that for anyone. No idea. And so I didn't realize that, I was dealing with that whole mental illness. And so I picked up after 4 years thinking, I took 4 years off. I got this. And obviously, because I'm sober now, that was not the case. And we were very successful in business. We built a business. I was able to leave my teaching job and then had a lot of free time in my hands. No one can tell me when I can't or can't drink. I can write it off. And we ended up selling part of our business, migrating down to Southwest Florida, and too much time on my hands and money and paradise and happy hours. I spiraled completely downward and my alcoholism just completely that was it. It was the end of the beginning of the end, I should say. And coming down here, we ended up looking for a community in church because we weren't really church back growing up. My husband, we call him a recovering Catholic. And so we went there and I met a few women who shared their story. And first of all, we're smiling about it. I've been sober this many years and that. And I'm like, you don't say that out loud. Nor are you happy about that. Like it completely blew my mind. There were two women, one was 7 years, one was 25, and I couldn't even stitch a few hours together, let alone that much time. And thank God they were the ones who brought me to my first meeting. And it took me about a year or so, but I had that research and development thinking I can control it. I'm not one of you guys. I really compare instead of identify. And finally, I got to the point where I put it down for a little while, picked it back up, that progressive drinking, and I couldn't pass any kind of store that sold alcohol without picking it up on my way home. And I got home and finally it was enough. My husband's like, my best friend, he wouldn't talk to me. He was just, everyone was done. And I knew I hit my breaking point. And that was the moment in which where I just folded over, finally asked God for help and said, I can't do this anymore. And finally heard all the wisdom in the rooms and it finally hit and that compulsion lifted and haven't had a drink since then. But as you very well know, that's where the that's where the work really begins, because the storm stops and you got to start picking up the pieces of your alcoholism. And so, I listened to everyone in recovery. I had wonderful people. I mean, we have what's called a 24-hour club here. They call it the 24 karat club because there's so much good recovery. Like, as much as there's drinking here, on the flip side, people will move here because the meetings are so amazing in this particular area. And I had just wonderful elderly, like they had more years sober than I had years alive. And they just pulled me in, enveloped me into, I had like just all these parental figures and grandparent figures I didn't have growing up, just filled in that void. And, and helped me with my daughter, rebuild our relationship and make it strong again. And from there, just working on that little bit of recovery job, part-time job, which is never fun. And again, just listening to the message, and whether something is good or something is wrong, and making sure that I go into those rooms and share my story so that I know the grass isn't greener. And that vigilance of working towards, the mental, physical, and emotional sobriety. Because just because I put the drink down, what happened was I picked up food again, and I rerouted my addiction to a completely different addiction. And then my health started failing because I just channeled my addiction. So I'm not drinking anymore, but now I was completely overeating, and I had gotten in a car accident. So the inflammation was all over the place, and having to really heal myself from the inside out. And that's where now focusing on the whole body, a physical, mental, and emotional sobriety, I found is the key for longevity, because this disease wants to find a way. It's like running water, it wants to find a way to get through. And it's either constructive energy or deconstructive energy. And so I have to work every single day. I'm like, okay, how am I going to use this extra energy that I used to use towards, channeling this addiction into something productive and constructive? And now it's helping other women in recovery, helping them, sober minded, even if they're not an addict. You don't have to be an addict to have an addiction or to be addicted to something, and really look at the whole body, mental, physical, and emotional sobriety, because you can be anger addicted. That's when I know I can kind of self inventory myself, and meant all of those different areas, cleaning up my diet, working out, taking care of myself, and having just a really healthy routine. And the other thing that is super important are the communities. I have my church community, I have the recovery community, and making sure I call them insurance policies. Funny enough, I just started doing a Pilates class. One of the women there, we're looking at each other like, where do I know you from? And we realized we were friends of Bill W. Like, it'd been years since we'd run into each other.
Mm,
But no matter where I go, my hairdresser, I have so many people in my world, no matter where I go, there's someone in recovery.
mhm,
Where first of all, it's like the miracle of sobriety, running into all these amazing women who've just
mhm,
transformed their lives. But also to remind me of who and what I am first. I have to make sure that I'm taking care of that addiction first, so that I don't lose everything afterward. And that's just so important in what I'm doing now, and transitioning, and having transitioned into coaching women full time has been a true blessing, to turn my purpose and passion into being able to get paid to help women, whatever spectrum, clean up themselves inside, because we live in a highly consumable, addictive society, that to bring the inside of our world into, I mean, we call them normies, I guess, where this behavior, that addictive and coping behavior, where it can become toxic and start breaking down really beneficial things to kind of reroute their life to live balanced and healthy and more calm. So they're not living what I used to do extremes. I call it deprivation and overcompensation. And finally learning to live in that middle spectrum has been really the most important part of my daily living, is catching myself on either end. And my most recent revelation was, after 10 years of sobriety, I share my story every year with my community. And I realized, I'm like, I got addicted to weight loss challenges. It was like, I'd sign up, like I always needed a goal, and I was like, holy cow, I did
mhm,
it again. So it's just, you always being, self-reflective and looking through, and where those behaviors sneak out. And I didn't even see it come until I looked back. I was like, oh wait, shoot, I did it again. All right, let me step back and look again, and really reroute my behavior. So that's been a huge part. But, without all the fellowship, without the people around me, I definitely would not have been here. I was headed towards death. I mean, I did blood work a year after I was sober, and I still had high liver enzymes,
oh, wow.
which was insane. Like, to put it down for a whole year and still have, it didn't look like anything on the outside, but to still how much repair it took on the inside from the damage that I had done. So in
Wow.
an incredible blessed point now, and to be able to turn around, and it's a gift you need to give someone else to keep getting it yourself. And so
Mm.
I feel truly blessed and grateful to be able to be in a position that I'm alive and well, and that I'm capable and able to be able to share this message with other women to be able to start their lives over again because they can if they're willing to.
Mm. Thank you so much, Heather, for sharing all that and for being just so vulnerable and honest. That's truly, I feel like, how it works for all of us, right? It's just, when we show up and we tell our stories, whatever it is, even if you're not in recovery, we all have something to share. We all have things that have gone on in our lives. We all have, a before and an after moment.
Mhm.
And when we show up and we tell those stories in a very real and authentic way, it helps other people.
Mhm.
We just can't help it. And being in the recovery community is a special place, I think. Laura
Mhm.
McGowan says it the best, honestly, with, we are the luckiest. I truly believe that too, that we truly are the luckiest. We were given a design for living that really works. And I still believe that today and hold that dear to my heart.
Mhm.
Every single day. I had a sponsor once that said, she wished that everybody would get drunk and lose everything so they had to come to AA
Oh yeah.
because there's just so much for about like living life. Like it really is a design for living that really works, right? And like regular people who don't show up in these rooms or in recovery programs, whatever that looks like for you, don't learn those same skills.
No.
They aren't forced because it's not a life or death situation to look at themselves in that same way that we are called to do in
Mhm.
order to make the kind of life-changing decisions on every single day that need to take place in order for us to get and stay sober and to live. So
Yeah.
it truly is the easier, softer way.
It really
Uh,
is.
it doesn't feel that way in the beginning, though, for sure. And
No,
I think
no.
you highlighted that really well. And that's just the truth of it. One of the pleasures of my life and in my profession too is, I have the honor and privilege of working with people on a very regular basis in my practice. I'm a
Mhm.
therapist, mental health therapist. I do EMDR therapy, and I do remote neurofeedback. I expanded into a group now. It's called holistic living, and where we all use integrated mental health practices here. But I specialize in trauma and addictions and anxiety, and so I do work with a lot of people who are either in recovery, trying to be in recovery,
Mhm.
living with someone, parenting someone, were parented by someone. Like pretty much everybody is affected, and so
Mhm.
I get, like I said, the honor and privilege of working with people very regularly who sometimes don't get it. I
Yeah.
have two in my practice. There's been like chronic relapsers, just chronic.
Mhm.
I talk about them here sometimes, and it's actually so painful for me personally. And I've been in
Oh
places
yeah.
in my work with them where I've just been like, oh my God, like this is just not. I'm not being very effective, like, or
Yeah.
it's not working, or whatever. And then I just have to quickly remind myself that people have to do it. You have to make that decision,
Yeah.
every single day. And we do those things every single day today around our sobriety. But I don't know about you, but for me, I've been sober kind of a little while. And so it's not really a forefront of my mind. My sobriety isn't necessarily the forefront of my mind all the time anymore. However, I am surrounded by a lot of other people who drink and use substances very heavily and regularly
Mhm.
socially all the time, like in my
Yep.
family, all around me. And so I'm exposed to it a lot, but I'm never questioning my own
Me neither. Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
However, I am exposed to it, which makes me question all of it and look at it and be not harmed by it, I guess, but kind of harmed in my heart. So my heart
Yeah.
hurts, because I'm just like, why do we have this?
Yeah. The
Why do we
heartbreaking
have
disease.
this? And it's
Yes.
heartbreaking. You have a young daughter. My middle daughter's the same as yours. I have an older
Mhm.
one, and then I have a younger one who's 18. He's graduating from high school this year, and they all love to drink and party and like do their thing, and it's very painful as a parent, I think, to watch that, whether it's problematic or not. It still
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
and I don't know what your experience has been with that, but for me, it is consistently heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Um, and I hate that, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
I hate
Yeah,
that.
I'm fortunate. My daughter just turned 21 in March,
Mm.
and she joked that she had 5 shots, but of espresso.
Oh my Lord.
She she was old enough. She turned 9. She was 9 when I got sober, and
Wow.
she saw the very very end, like the really horrific stuff. Cops coming. I mean, it was just
Mm.
really bad. And I mean, I was driving around drunk. I luckily I didn't have the yet, so I didn't have a DUI. I mean, by the grace of God, I didn't kill anyone. I didn't hurt anyone. I mean,
Mhm.
emotionally, but thank God not physically. And so she really saw the final spiral downward, and
Mhm.
the fear and terror of what I was putting her through, and to be rebuild that relationship. And so I've been fortunate that I have a kid she's more on the anxiety side, and she's
Yeah.
learned from other people's mistakes. She's like, no thanks. And so she's just never, she'd come to the rooms with me. So she got to hear talk about, she's heard everything. And we work in ministry. So we have recovery meetings that meet here. So she's been involved in this community. She jokes, she's like,
Mhm.
can I go to a meeting at 21 and say, can I get a 21-year chip? Because I never drank.
Oh my
So she's
gosh.
very close, and she already, that feels home to her, which is important to me. I never told her not to drink. It's her choice. But if she knows, if she's got a 50-50 shot. My husband doesn't have that issue, but if it lands on her and she decides to go down that road, what I didn't have, she knows that those rooms are there for her, and
Right.
that's a welcome, warm place that if she does,
Right.
it's there. But she's seen enough of the wreckage in our lives and other people's lives, and in death. We've been through a lot. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. And
Yeah.
so luckily she's learned from that. Time will tell. Now she's 21, she still lives at home, and
Yeah.
but at least for now, that's not the thing I have to worry about with her.
Yes.
So
So what I just learned is that getting sober before I had kids was a mistake.
really.
Sounds like. No, I'm just
No,
kidding.
no, no.
I'm just teasing. No, I do think that it makes a big difference. So it's like people
Mhm.
who grow up with smokers, like my husband's mom
Yeah.
was a smoker and he was always like, I will never do that. And he just
Yeah.
hates smoking. You can go either
Hmm.
way, right? You can either like turn into kids who like love it or kids who
Yeah.
hate it. And we did a lot of educating. I still do
Yeah.
constantly, regularly, consistently, and hope it sticks, hope something sinks in. And like you said, I mean, I always feel like I know what's not in my control, which is most things.
Yeah.
And actually that's kind of refreshing because I just know that I can influence, but I really can't control very
Yeah.
much except for what I put in my mouth and what I put on my body. And
Yeah.
sometimes what comes out of my mouth, but not always.
Yeah.
And so there's some peace in that, but also I know that in 5 minutes all of this could change.
Oh, yeah. I
Anything could
always say
change.
you're an arm's length away. You only have today.
Yeah.
So although I
So
have time behind me, that's where that vigilance comes in. It's so
yeah.
important to remember, you're eligible to, just because those things didn't happen. If I pick back up, I've heard the stories of people who've gone out after long terms of sobriety, and it's so much worse. So for me, I'm like, no thanks. um, this
Yeah.
is so much better to live on this side of it
Oh,
and
sure.
keep the
Now,
grass
but
green.
you mentioned already, even though you started out talking about food, and I always think that it's interesting too that we will. I don't know what your experience has been in recovery, but I got sober and then I got pregnant at 6 months when I was sober 6 months, and then I had three kids in 4 years, which I don't recommend, but that's what happened. And so it was really a little bit backwards. I was doing
Hmm.
all this good work in the beginning. However, then I had all these babies, and so I was focusing on being a mom and like some of that stuff that really needed to be attended to was like halfway, but like wasn't fully being attended to. And so I had what I consider, or I call my first sober bottom at
Yeah.
like year four,
Hmm.
and so I was like at the bottom, here I am, like kind of at the bottom of the barrel, like ready to just, kill myself again or go
Yeah.
back out. And, what was great is like, I knew what to do. And luckily I picked up the phone and called my sponsor and they were like, oh yeah, we've been waiting for you,
Yeah.
and so that's good. And all that to say that we we never really arrive,
No.
we don't really arrive. We're all under construction at all times until we die, I think, right? So we're
Yeah.
constantly working on something. So I lost my train of thought for a second, but then I just reminded me when you said vigilance, that really stuck out to me because and if you want to be well, if you're not a
Yeah.
sober woman, you're listening to this, or you just want to be a well person, or you struggle with mental health issues.
Hmm.
I think what I was going to say is I will find a way to make myself unwell.
Me too. Yes.
So when
It could
I'm
be
at my
anything.
bottom, right?
Yeah.
Like COVID for us was
Yeah.
really, really tough with three teenagers and mental health stuff and like just craziness. And I started using food. Like I was like at the
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A getting my milkshake all the time and I was like gorging myself,
Yeah.
satisfying, escaping my life through, sugar and food. And it
Hmm.
was really detrimental to my health. Like I
Yeah.
know better. I've studied natural
Me
wellness. I
too. I
understand.
can 100%. I know.
Yeah.
And I could, like, you're like, why? Same thing when you're drinking, like, why am I doing this to myself? But I don't know how to, why
Hmm.
can't I stop? It's a
Because we just want
same,
some
same,
relief, right?
exactly.
And
Escapaholism, is really what it is.
we'll find a way, whether it's through
Mhm.
shopping, whether it's through exercise, whether it's through men,
Yeah.
whatever the thing
Yeah.
is. So we just have to be
Period.
vigilant constantly
Yeah.
about like, what's going on with me. And so I'm curious to ask about for you, like, what are your signals? Like, how do you know if you're kind of starting down that path of like, not well, Um, how do you know? I lost you. Well, hey there, Heather. Thank you so much for joining me. Um,
Here. Yeah, my power just went out.
oh,
So,
okay. I was like, I lost you.
yeah, yeah, no.
Um,
So, yeah, wonderful Florida. Power went out. So, um,
okay.
yes, but
Anyway,
I
let's
have a
regroup.
hotspot, so I'm good to go. Yes.
So I don't know if you heard
And
my
so you were
question. Yeah.
there. Let there be light.
Let there be light. So I was just saying that, like,
Where
as a matter of being vigilant and like understanding these things about ourselves that we know now,
exactly.
what are the triggers or the warning signs for you? How do you know when you're slipping down that path, like when you're not well?
Yeah, a lot. I find the repetitive behavior that where I feel same thing like when I'm in I have a coach, I still work at it, but I know when I'm becoming obsessed with something, when I start putting something before my normal responsibilities way too often, or my husband's like, did you hear me? I mean, luckily I have very blunt daughter and husband. They're very happy to remind me when I'm veering off. They're kind of like my guardrails. But sometimes it's internally where it's same thing. If you shoot, call it shoes, booze, or handbags. Like if I find myself obsessing into something that is taking my time away from what it is I'm supposed to be doing. Same thing with food. Like I'll get into new routines. Even if for a while it was Menchie's frozen yogurt. I'm like, why do I, every time I get gas, I need to get yogurt? I was like, holy cow, I'm doing it again. Where I'm creating a new habit. And so I have to catch myself in that where I'm like, why, like the same weird pattern. Same thing with like getting obsessed with weight loss competitions. I gain the same 20 pounds, lose the same 20 pounds, gain the same. Oh my, I've won and lost so many competitions with the same 20 pounds. I had to literally step away. And I'd get these challenges in my email and unsubscribe. I'm like, I just have to do it for the sake of doing it, not because I'm going to win a prize at the end of the day,
Mhm.
because I was damaging my health going through those cycles over and over again. So
Mm.
it's a lot of self inventory, like I said, having those insurance policies. I share my story at my church every year. I'm like, if I'm at Staples more than I'm in my office, call me out
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
I should be in my office, not. You there? Okay, sorry.
Oh,
Technical difficulties. I don't know where I left off.
that's okay. You just said, if you were at Staples, more than you were in your office, which
Oh
I
yeah,
can relate to. I feel like, I developed I guess it's fairly new. So I've had like these kids, my kids have transitioned a lot lately. Like I had one, my oldest went off to college. Then a year later, the second one went off. Now I've got one graduate. There's a lot going on. And every
yeah.
time they leave, it just hasn't gotten any easier for me. It's just very, very hard and emotional. And so I started like making things. Like making things is like my coping skill. And so
Mhm.
it could be like sourdough, or it could
Yeah,
be like I decided I wanted to start making clay jewelry. I'm like, what are you doing? And
yeah,
or like cards for people. I just start like making stuff. And so then this last time in August, I was like really in a bad way. And I started ordering stuff on Amazon and I'm like getting all this. I'm like, I'm gonna make this jewelry. And you're like, girl, like you're running
yeah,
a bit like you're not gonna like that's just not a good idea. But I was like, my whole kitchen table was full of crap of
yeah,
like, I mean, it's all great stuff and it's all fun and wonderful. But like, I'm starting to expand my practice. Like, I was expanding my practice, trying to hire people. It just wasn't a good time. But I was just emotionally so hot mess. Like, I couldn't
hmm
manage myself. I mean, I was managing myself, and frankly, I would choose that over like drinking or using or eating myself to death, I guess. But um
yeah.
it still is an indicator, right? Of like,
Yeah.
What's going on?
And it reminds, yeah, and the disease is there. Like I said,
Yeah.
it's same root, different branch. It will channel itself somewhere else if I'm not careful. And that is the most important thing. That's where I have to be vigilant about. I mean, because food addiction for me, I think that was so much harder because we can live without alcohol. You can't live without
Right.
food. And
Exactly.
so you're in a battle every single time you have to make a decision of what goes into your mouth.
Mm.
And that for me, that has been the harder like thing to overcome than just the alcohol. Because alcohol, I'm like, great, fine, you have your glass. I don't care. Like, but to drive past either fast food,
Yeah.
you're literally you can't not eat. There's no abstinence in that. And so that has been so I mean, I have to really look at it. And I work with my coach consistently and think about, okay, we have the five things. Like, why am I eating? I mean, so it translates in everything else that I'm doing. Why am I doing this for emotional or, that healthy balance has just been, I've had to be so vigilant about it and then also not become obsessed with the obsession of controlling my food because that
Yes.
becomes an addiction of itself. And so
Yes.
it is insane how our brains are wired that, you have like these different versions of yourself in your mind and they're always battling each other. It's like keeping that addiction version of ourselves just in
Hmm.
check at all times, like having a constant toddler in your brain. Like, no, you cannot have a candy bar on your way out of the grocery store. It's,
You're so right. And I love the questions. That's my favorite tool, I feel like, and something I talk about in my practice constantly and I use all the time. Like, questions like, what am I afraid of? Or, what is going
mhm,
on with me right now? Like, why am I getting
yeah. What
kind
am I
of,
not willing to face?
yeah, like
Yeah.
there's something happening in my body, and
Hmm.
usually by now, like I don't know about you, but I'm very aware of what's is happening within myself. Like,
Hmm.
so then I'll be like,
Yeah.
what's going on? Like, what do you need right now? Like, what is happening?
Hmm.
Because or what about this situation is bothering you? That's my favorite. Like, what
Yeah.
about this
Yeah.
particular interaction is bothering you? It's
Yeah.
usually like fear of not getting something we want or losing something we have. And those kinds of questions, like we used to do that a lot with the kids because our kids were super busy. They were athletes. They were always in, summer, there's a lot of decisions to make. And I remember
Yeah.
saying that to myself, like, what am I doing this for? Like, why am I putting my kid in this camp? Or why do I want this kid to play these two sports? Because there was like, we were asking a lot of ourselves with time, energy, and money, and them as well. So it's like, am I trying to keep up with somebody? Or are we trying to like make her
Hmm.
look
What's the
good? Like, what are
motive?
we doing? And so I
Yeah,
think those are
exactly.
really important questions that we all need to ask. What is this for?
Hmm.
Is it truly for your personal development and your growth? Is it
Yeah.
for your mental health and well-being? Then great. If you can
Yeah.
honestly look at yourself and like your decision making and those are the answers, I think that's wonderful. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of times when we dig deeper, and then we go down, like, okay, well, what is that for? What is that about? Why
Hmm.
is that bothering you? And further and further, we get to those like kind of deeper core
Yeah.
beliefs that give us a lot more clues about what's going on. It could
Yeah.
be like,
It's like if
wow,
I don't know if you've done the why exercise like 5 times, like
mhm,
why, but then
mhm.
why, but why?
Same,
Oh,
yeah.
when you get to the last one, you're like, oh my gosh, okay, there it is.
Mhm.
And but
Yeah.
for us, like I said, you said it's life and death. We have to. I know I have to
Mhm.
continue on that self inventory because if like I said, this disease will it'll find something deconstructive if it's not constructive. And
Mhm.
that's a lot of, simple tools on a daily basis. Is this something that's getting it's or they say, is it closer to a drink, further away from a drink? Is it closer to my addiction or further away from it? Is it
Yeah.
something that's serving me healthfully or unhealthfully? And sometimes I'll make the honest decision. No, I'm having this ice cream. I know it's unhealthy, but I'm not going to get hung up on it. I'm not going to get addicted to it. I'm just going to enjoy it and put it down and move on. And even that's been a huge process of learning how to acknowledge it in the moment. And hopefully, like addiction sobriety, that will become second nature where I don't have to face the guilt or non guilt or identify why I'm choosing that food for that moment. And,
Yeah.
so much work.
That was so good what you just said though, and so important. Like I feel like I can relate to that a lot, especially in like my older I feel like that's just getting better and better in my older age, right?
Hmm.
Being able to like give myself a lot of grace. Now we can like grace ourselves out of
Yeah.
like a lot of personal responsibility and like some other stuff too. But like
Yeah.
it is a big part of the process, right? Being able to
Yeah.
look at that and be saying, I'm not a bad person, but I just
Yeah.
really want to eat this ice cream. Yes,
Yeah.
I know it has cancer-causing ingredients and I'm aware of it. I've studied it. I read the thing and I still want it. And so I'm going
Yeah.
to do it. And
Yeah.
like being able to I feel like just say that and do it is helpful for me
Yeah.
because then I do want to eat the ice cream like all the time. And like I just I'm kind of coming out of a little bit of a period right now where I've been like not the greatest with some of that and completely out of control. And I know that I do come out of it. Like,
Yeah.
that's the other thing. It's like, but it's got to be just like anything else. It does have to be like your decision, your
Yeah.
timing. You have to decide, like, I've had enough.
Yeah.
I'm
Being sick
sick
and
and
tired,
tired
sick,
of
sick and tired.
this.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes a while. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I always say like you have to want more than the other person. Like, so, and that's the thing, you have to want to put in the work to be, and that was where I hit with a lot of the addiction, the
Mm,
weight loss addiction and
mm,
competition. I had to put my own self-value in place that I want to be healthy for the sake of being healthy for myself,
right.
because I'm always, we're people pleasers at the end of the day, especially, with how at least how I'm wired as an addict, is I can't, same thing with your addiction. Your alcohol, you can't do it for anyone else. You have to do it for yourself. And so applying that to any other avenue, that was so hard to like, I'm eating healthy for the sake, not for a weight loss competition, not to make sure that, with all these other things, it has to be because I love myself enough to take care of myself.
Yeah.
And that's still hard to accept the love for myself. It's so much easier to give it to everyone else. But it's so easy to put myself on the back burner and just kind of and then justify my behavior because, well, I'm taking care of everyone else. So forget it. I can eat, go through the drive-through while I meal prep for everyone else in my family, make sure that they're eting healthy. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, great. So now I'm not healthy. They're upset because I'm not healthy, but I'm taking care of them. They're like, what are you doing? All right. So
Ugh, what a crazy roller
it
coaster it
really
is, right?
is.
Like
Oh my
honestly,
gosh.
I listen to us talking even just like even though I totally agree with everything you're saying and I'm right there with you, it just still makes me feel like, man, we are just like nuts.
Yeah.
And I do think it's part of the human experience, though. It's the
Yes.
human experience. I know you've expressed some comments like about your faith and your spiritual journey, and like that's a huge part of our life too.
Hmm.
And I feel like that has been something that has been a big growth area for me in the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years specifically, and even more so just through study and like being with the right people
Yeah.
and that has been very life changing and I think kind of eye opening more like even more aligned with kind of 12 step recovery because I know there's lots of different kinds of people get sober a lot of ways more aligned with that than even it was before like I feel even more aligned with my spiritual program with 12 step recovery than I ever was before
Yeah.
and meaning like I just feel so deeply connected to the fact that like I'm not in control of all the things
You
there
don't have
is a
to be.
God, there's a higher
Yeah.
power, and I call my higher power God. And like that person is in control of all the things. I
Hmm.
believe that with my whole heart. I've fully invested in that. And so I don't really need to like step in.
Yeah.
It is the solution.
Yeah.
And
They're
I
two
do feel
sides of
like,
the same coin for me, is how I've always described it. I can't have one without the other.
yeah,
I'd be dead otherwise. And it's so, so important for me on that end. And I've joked like I've resigned from trying to be God. You can have your job back. I don't need it.
oh
It's
my
too
God,
hard.
you're so right.
You've clearly, the difference between him and me is he knows he's not me. Had to learn that the hard way.
I mean, I think we all do, and
Yeah.
or we don't.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the people in my practice that I was referring to that has been a struggle, and I've talked about it here before, just because sometimes it's just really hard, to
Yeah.
watch somebody
Yeah.
just consistently. This is decades long
Yeah.
of chronic relapse, destruction, um, and still like I remember about a year ago or something when they were at the end kind of that this particular bout, right? And like they were facing a legal situation, they got in trouble and I mean they came in and I just sat here and I kind of looked and I said I don't think there's anything else I can say.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing else I can offer you that we
Mm-mm.
haven't already done.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean I would ever give up, but like there's no more knowledge.
Yeah.
It really does come to a place where like you have to decide
Yeah.
like that and so then things got better. They got like actually quite a bit of sobriety, like 6 months of sobriety, which is the longest they've ever had. And then this past week, came in and said, I drank. And I really was like, okay, man, here we go.
Yeah.
This is great. We're doing good work. And then they drank. But a lot of it has to do with, step work and facing
Yeah.
some of the stuff. And I said, there's a reason why they call it the 1, 2, 3 shuffle.
Yeah.
People don't
Yeah.
want to look at the
No.
destruction because
Mm-mm.
it's painful. But I'm like, is the pain of that is still less for you or more for you than not taking a drink?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I'm like, good Lord. And yes, I guess it is. But
Yeah.
what I said to them is you're still holding on to stuff. There's
Yeah.
still things you don't want to change. And the program says you have to change everything.
Yeah.
I know it sounds cliche. I don't
Yeah.
like it either. Nobody
No.
really likes it, but like
No.
you have to change everything. You're still
Yes.
trying to hang out with your friends.
Yes.
You're still trying to do this other stuff. You're still not doing, da 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 da. And so the results are this.
And that's the insanity.
And I'm like, why don't you just try
Yeah.
to like go all in? Like, and there's a humility there that's just not there. It's not turning over yet.
Well,
It's
I
just
said,
not.
complete honesty is really the key. You have to get honest with yourself. And until you're ready to look at it, for me, it was enough to know, okay, how much more damage do I want to cause that I have to clean up?
Right.
It was already hard enough. Like we lost a business. I mean, I luckily didn't lose my marriage, but
Right. No, true.
I had enough consequences that it was like, really, do I need to clean up more than the mess that I've already made?
Exactly.
And that kept me from going back. It was like, okay, this is enough, like
Right.
internally, everything else. But, and same thing, I have a chronic relapser. Woman, she was amazing. Like CFO, I mean, you couldn't on paper have a better life than the full American dream to the highest of level. And I've lost kind of how many times of rehab. Finally, all the gets divorced, lost her kids. She has to be a babysat around them. I mean, literally everything short of death has happened to her. And there was a point at which she could have changed, but she's trying to outthink her way out of the whole thing
Yeah.
instead of finally fully surrender. It's like,
Right.
it's almost like the more high achieving you are, the hard you think that and I was a victim of this in the beginning. I've willpowered my way out of every other broken chain in my family. Why couldn't I do it with this?
Hmm.
Because it required a different key that I didn't have. And until you're ready to finally take the key from God, and because you can't make it yourself, you have to ask for it, ask for help, surrender, and allow him in, allow other people in, and finally fully surrender to the disease. You can't, you don't fight with it. You're never going to win. I've seen it so many times to know that that's the truth.
Yeah.
To leave is, you can't fight it one on one. You have to walk away. And that's the hardest thing for people to understand, is
Yep.
that abstinence is truly real. You can't, it's playing with fire. And
And the smart ones are the worst. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
the smart
absolutely.
ones are the worst. They can intellectualize and
Yeah,
rationalize anything, and that's it's the worst. I'm like,
yeah,
this is your own worst enemy. So it
yeah,
truly is a humbling experience, though,
yes.
and we don't like it.
No.
As humans, we don't have to. You don't have to like it.
Mm,
Do you want to live, or do you want to just keep going? And like you get to, you
yeah,
get to do it. Like you're an adult. Like
yeah,
you can
yeah,
continue on, and do that. You get to do that, but you're also not going to have any of the results that you're looking for.
yeah. At
Um,
what cost, really?
yeah. So what kind of work are you into now? Just share a little bit and then
Yeah.
where you
So
like people to reach out to you before we close.
yeah, I've done so much in my local community with recovery rooms and just women in ministry I've worked with, and now working full time in a full sober life and transformation coach, got my nutrition and wellness certification, and really working, as we've talked about, that whole body, mental, and I've got the church. So if someone is a believer, I can bring a lot of that in. I'm very careful if someone's not there yet. I respect those boundaries, but really looking at the person as a whole and cleaning up all of those areas to be balanced, so they're no longer living in those extremes. And so I've done a lot in my community and now transitioning online, because they're so, to be able to reach. I mean, I was talking to someone in Australia yesterday, I have someone in South Africa. Like, there are no limits into how you can help individuals. So I've got an online community that I'm growing. I've got a sober reset program. I call it Sober Boss Babe, so that women who are high achieving, learning what sobriety is, even if they're not necessarily in recovery, but
Mhm.
learn how to turn down that coping mechanism to channel that energy to being the best version of themselves in a clean manner. And then I've got my one-on-one coaching. So really, that's my main focus right now. Aside from just being a woman, my husband's a pastor, like pastor's wife. Like, raising a full, I don't know, this, raising an adult child is almost harder than a toddler, because their decisions are permanent. So But really, that's been, and I've been so blessed that my passion, purpose, and what I get paid to do now are so in line. And
Mhm.
it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't an alcoholic. And so, what I thought was the worst thing that ever happened to me ended up being a miracle in the making. And to be able to be on the other side, alive and well, and to share the message to help other people know that there is hope.
Mhm. So where do you like people to reach out to you if they want to learn more?
Yes, so I've got my website. You can fill out a form there. You can book a free consultation to see if we're the right fit. Also, you can join the community. So all the links are on my main website. I also have a link tree I can send to you that has all the different avenues, my social medias that you can connect with me. I do have my own YouTube channel, so I share a lot of the different angles of my recovery, and all the different things that I've done in life, sharing different pieces of that. So website mainly, but yeah, I'll give you the link of every different touch point to choose where in the journey you'd like to join me if you're ready and willing. So,
All right, I'll make sure I link that in the show notes below. And so thank you again so much, Heather, for your time. This is a fabulous conversation, and I hope our paths cross again soon.
oh yes, definitely. It was great. Thank you for having me.
Mhm.